What is up, everybody? This is your boy, Teran Rodriguez, bringing you another edition of Set Point. And as always, we have ourselves a jam-packed show, as we have a lot to get into, as we have ourselves a big guest. Who's this guest? Well, if you've been living under a rock and you missed last episode, well, you kind of missed out, but you'll have to wait and see. But how about all of the NCAA men's volleyball results from last week? How about those Loyola Ramblers beating Ball State and Ohio State? They rest all alone in first place in the MIVA as they were looking quite impressive. And how about Stanford looking really good against Pepperdine? That shakes the MPSF up quite nicely. And UCLA as well as GCU looked really good. And how about Hawaii getting Charlie Wade his 250th win last week? Quite the milestone for Mr. Wade. And NCAA Beach Volleyball season starts up this week as can those USC Trojans protect their crown for the third straight year? Or will UCLA, Florida State, GCU, and all those other talented teams have anything to offer? Hand me a volleyball, set up the net, because I'm about to serve you up some volleyball action here on Set Point. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of Set Point. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Monday wherever you are listening from. Either way, you have made your way into episode 183 of Set Point. Without any further delay, let's get started. But first and foremost, we have ourselves a special guest. My guest is the head men's volleyball coach of your reigning champion, Las Vegas Ramblers, and he's also the head boys volleyball coach at Aliso Niguel High School, and he's also a club volleyball coach at Orange County Volleyball Club. The dude wears a lot of hats. The dude does a lot, and he does a lot except for sell popcorn. But knowing our luck and knowing me, he probably does that as well. Ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, the one, the only, Mr. Miguel Monterola. How you doing, Miguel?
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show. Actually excited about doing this with you, so
hey,
let's get it going.
Happy to have you aboard, Miguel. I appreciate you taking time out of your day, and thank you very much. I know you're at an airport, but I really do appreciate you taking time and dedicating some time to being on the show. So without any further delay, let's get on into it. But first and foremost, just a little disclaimer. These are the thoughts and opinions of myself, Teran Rodriguez, and of Miguel Monterola, and not the thoughts and opinions of Aliso Niguel High School, the Las Vegas Ramblers, the IE Sports Radio, or any third or fourth party organizations. So with all that said and done, Miguel, the floor is all yours. Tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and how you got into volleyball.
Well, I was born in Venezuela, which is a South American country. I ended up moving to the States when I was 10 years old. I moved to Miami, Florida. And I got into volleyball a little bit late. I got into volleyball when I was a high school player. Fell in love with the sport immediately. And within the process of getting better in high school, I got introduced to coaching by my high school coach. Sector Martinez, he took pretty much the time to show me the ropes, and that was something that definitely I had in mind when I was getting older, and maybe I was going to make some kind of career out of. I ended up moving to the West Coast, California, when I was 19. Played junior college, IVC, in San Diego Mesa. Got a scholarship to go to Cal Baptist, and that was a ton of fun. In the process of that, I got involved coaching club, and I started OCVC, Orange Coast Volleyball Club, in 2002. Very lucky to win a gold medal with the 14th team, our first opening season, and that kind of gave us an avenue to grow pretty fast. Before you know it, it's been over 20 years running OCVC. I had the opportunity to coach with really good people, among myself. Coach at IVC with Tom Pestalacci, Key, and a couple of other guys that were definitely good mentors for me to develop into becoming a much better coach. We ended up winning a national championship at IVC, and that was a pretty good, memorable story. Within that, I wasn't really interested in coaching high school anymore. Club was pretty much taking all my time. But one of those days, somebody eventually asked me to go to an interview. Went to the interview, loved it, and pretty much got the bug. I've been at Aliso Niguel for 7 years. He was definitely challenging with the concept that a lot of kids were not really introduced to the game till probably they were in high school. There were not really that many club players. So we went with the idea of changing the culture and trying to get people to buy into the idea of just playing before or during the high school career. Very satisfied, very rewarding gig. Last year we were in the Final Four. That's the best time that Aliso Niguel boys ever done. So definitely excited about this upcoming year, where we have a couple of players that I think are a little bit more mature, a little bit better, and this could be the best year. This could be the best team that I ever had on Aliso. I'm looking forward to that.
Awesome stuff, Miguel. So we talk about last year's Aliso Niguel boys volleyball team. So I'm looking at the schedule from last year. So obviously there were some ups and downs. I see some good wins. I see you beat Edison. We'll be talking about that a little bit later. I did actually see your team in the Tesoro tournament. You had some pretty solid wins. I saw you beat Edison. You took Sage Creek to the brink, and you made it into the top 16, top 8. And then you held your own in the South Coast League. Now, obviously, being in the South Coast League with San Clemente and Tesoro, how tough is it being in a league with those type of teams?
It's definitely a league that you have to come prepared. I mean, you have to do your diligence and your homework, because you know that Pat and Rich Polka at Tesoro are going to get the job done. So, you know, they're very dedicated, very good coaches, and I know that they have a pretty good program. So we definitely got to be ready, because every single season they have a chance to win it all. There was a coaching change at San Clemente. The San Clemente's always been pretty good, so, you know, I wouldn't be surprised that the next couple of years we're going to be, once again, trying to win a title. But it's definitely a cool challenge, because, you know, it's local kids that you get to see them growing up, because they were 14 and under, and then you get to see them in high school and club, and pretty much a lot of familiar faces. So definitely look forward to those 2.5 months of the high school season.
So in the South Coast League, you were able to topple Tesoro in 5 sets, which I thought was very impressive. And eventually you did wound up finishing 3rd, which does qualify you into the playoffs. And in the playoffs, you actually wound up breezing through the first 2 rounds. You swept El Medina and you swept La Quinta. Then you wound up facing a familiar foe in Edison. And believe it or not, you actually wound up beating Edison in 5 sets. And if I recall correctly, you were down 0-2, and then you wound up beating them in 5. You reverse swept them. How were you all able to defeat Edison on the road after you were down 0-2?
You know, that was a pretty special win, because about 15 years before that, I ended up coaching Eli Perez, which is the head coach at Edison. He was a guy that worked with me at OCVC, and he's one of my favorite guys of all time. So it's really cool to see guys that you coach in the past get into the coaching world and then being very successful. Honestly, it was a very emotional match. We went there, played for a big crowd. They were playing very, very well on the first 2 sets. And they kind of fell asleep in the 3rd. Give us a little bit of a chance. We ended up coming back on that 3rd set. and give us a little bit of confidence.
Uh-oh. Okay. All right, so it looks like we lost a little bit of connection with Miguel, but again, it's because he's in a airport and there's a lot of people. All right. Hey, Miguel, we're back on. So continue on.
Can you hear me, Tim?
Yes.
So sorry about that.
It's all right. No good. All good.
But yeah, like I said, it was a very emotional match. They give us a little opening on the third set, and my boys responded very well. We got a little bit of confidence. They always like to play for a crowd. Once we came back and won the fourth set, we knew that we had a chance. And like I said, it's very emotional because the relationship we have not only with the players but also with the coaches. Boys bought into what we're selling for the last couple of years, and we knew that we had a couple of seniors that they knew that we were going to be a last season, obviously, so they were striving to try to figure out a way to get another win and keep advancing. So, very proud of the boys. Very special night, and definitely a good year for Aliso.
Now, obviously, and unfortunately, we have to bring up this loss. You were able to host the semifinal match against the number 1 seed Upland, but sadly, the very talented Upland team, led by Jordan Lucas, who is now at GCU, unfortunately made you bow out in the semifinals. How tough was that loss, but what were the positives from that match, and what can you all take away from that loss in the semifinals and the entire season?
We knew that, we got to play them in preseason, so we got an idea of how talented that group was. I had the pleasure to coach Jordan Lucas in the past for 16s and 17s in clubs, and he is a very special player. So we knew that we had a work cut out for us. The only advantage was that was at home. We definitely give them a run for their money, but at the end of the day, they just have so much hitting power. Fired on both sides of the court. They definitely got the best of us. We're proud of the boys. The boys definitely fought and found a way to make the game very relevant. But like I said, at the end of the day, we came a little bit short.
Mm-hmm. So, as we close the door on last year's high school boys volleyball season and club season, who are your favorite players you've coached on Aliso Niguel and in club volleyball season?
One of the biggest reasons I ended up going to Aliso was because of Big Red. Now at UCLA, Mr. Bonsieg was one of my favorite kids ever. 6'8", big lefty, an amazing team player. But to be honest with you, there's just a list. There's a lot of guys at Aliso that make my life an incredible journey. So guys that played for me in the past, guys that actually I got to meet by coaching at Aliso. The last couple of years, we had a guy like Ty Carson, who's one of the most physical guys in the league, now going to Lubbock State. Last year, we had Johnny McKeon, who's one of our setters, phenomenal little BYU kid. Armand Sia was one of our best outsides the year before. But there's just an incredible amount of kids that obviously every season you kind of fall in love with. On the club world, you definitely got the infamous Taylor Sanders that he was definitely a treat. I was in my 20s when I was coaching him, and he was extremely electrifying at the age of 15 and 16. But then again, there was another guy named John Corumpus in the same team that was a phenomenal athlete. Spencer Rowe in the same group, Marshall Kinnison, and that was just one team. Last couple of years, we had the pleasure to coach Andrew Rowe, and now the starting setter for UCLA as a freshman. He was definitely a guy that stole the show many times in the last couple of years, and it's definitely in the conversation of being the best player that we ever had at the club. So, every single season, we get a handful of kids. I get to coach 13, which is one of my favorite kids to coach. So I get to see the talent that are very raw and younger age. But I look forward to seeing him grow up by the time we get to be 17.
Please ensure that you do have a
So, Andrew Rowan, I know all too well about him just because he is absolutely a star. I saw him a couple weeks ago against Long Beach State, just a phenomenal player, and he is just blossoming into such a fantastic player. But that's just me gushing about Andrew Rowan being such a great player. So, anyway, moving on to this year's Aliso Niguel boys volleyball season. So, what can you tell me about this year's boys volleyball season for Aliso Niguel?
Well, we got Ty Carson as a senior, which is definitely a big force. Unfortunately, he got an injury about 2 weeks ago, so we're hoping that he's going to be back in no time. But he's definitely going to make a difference on our team. He's a guy that helped us a ton last year. Opposite outside, very live arm, and a guy that could definitely put a team on his shoulders. Raul Papaleo, the other infamous outside, very good defender, a little underside, but definitely gets the job done. Anthony's our new middle. He might be able to be said he's a guy that definitely got improved so much in the last 2-3 years. Also another senior that I think that is going to make a big difference on our team. And right now there's going to be I feel that if we can keep the guys injury free, we definitely could be extremely successful in the next couple of days.
So looking at your schedule at a glance via Max Preps, you start out the week really strong. Tomorrow, you start out your season on the road against Beckman, who is one of the most highly anticipated teams this season in the Southern section. And then on Thursday, you have to face my alma mater in Newport Harbor. And and then I'm sorry. Composure time, Teran. And then, if I'm not mistaken, do you all participate in the Tesoro tournament this weekend, or no?
Yes. I was actually coaching. I was with the girls in Vegas, so we got a couple of other coaches taking over the duties of coaching. But, like you said, we're strong, extremely strong with Beckman, which I feel is probably the team to beat right now. They got the twin brothers, which one is the hitter, one is the setter, and they're the real deal. So that is definitely an early challenge and an early wake-up call for us to figure out where we're at and what we need to do in order to be competitive in the home league.
Awesome. And I was about to complete my train of thought before I was getting a little giddy at the start to the season. How are you all able to get that strong start to the season? And is this strong start to the season like a big test for you all to like toughen you up for like the South Coast League?
100%. I feel that we definitely want to get an idea of what we have to do in the next couple of weeks, just to get us a little more prepared, because we know what the store is going to bring, and we know Santa Mana is going to be there. There's a new head coach at Dana Spencer Andrews, which is definitely going to be a good fit for them. I'm sure that he's going to try to revive that program. Unfortunately, after Doc passed away, they kind of struggled in the last couple of years. So I feel that a little young blood is going to definitely help that in the next couple of seasons. But no, it is a good challenge. I want to be able to load up a schedule and figure out a way to be relevant and competitive, to give us a little bit of an idea of how hard the season is going to be.
So, other matchups I am looking at here on the schedule, you've got some pretty good marquee matchups. You've got Santa Margarita on the 2nd of March, and then the matchup that I think everyone might have circled on their calendar. You've got Edison on the 7th of March. You kick off the league on the 14th against Trabuco Hills. You've got Tesoro on the 16th, and then you've obviously got San Clemente. San Juan Hills is now in the South Coast League. So tell me, what's the South Coast League looking like at a glance? Because I know Tesoro looks really good considering they won CIF last year and they returned Nathan Draper as well as their CIF Player of the Year.
I feel that in our league, it's definitely, they are a powerhouse. I mean, the Soul has always been good. Right now, I think that there's a couple of teams that are going to give them a run for the money, including ourselves. Franklin was young, but they were pretty good. So I don't see them staying behind at all. I think that any given Sunday, any given week at this point, the best team, can surprise, and the underdog can actually take advantage of it. So I feel that it's going to be an interesting first couple of weeks, and I think that the two leagues brings that to us every single season, because it almost comes down to the nitty-gritty at the end to see who's going to make the playoffs.
Excellent. All right, so jumping on over from the high school boys volleyball season over to the NVA season from last year. So the NVA season was obviously extremely special as the Las Vegas Ramblers wound up winning the NVA Cup or the NVA Championship, as it was the first NVA Championship, as the Ramblers managed to finally break through the gold medal after finishing third in 2020 and silver in 2021. What was that feeling like for the Ramblers to finally get that gold medal after pretty much heartbreaking finishes in the semifinals and final?
I definitely was pretty blessed with the group of guys that I had. I knew that they obviously what they wanted to do is get to the finals and get the ultimate sort of the promised land and win it. So we knew that we had that goal in mind from day one. Michael Keegan, our setter, was a guy that pretty much put that group on his shoulders. And then we have phenomenal players. I mean, from Jordan Hoppy to Brandon Ratcher, Kevin Bass, Kanigi, Mathers. It was a guy that when he was hot, he was pretty scary. All the kids that we have were extremely high level players, and we were just training, getting ready to advance and figure out a way to achieve the ultimate goal. They bought into what I was telling. They were extremely committed, and they committed to the program. They were driving from San Diego, from LA. Our practices were definitely high level, and I knew that they were very, very committed to the concept of just getting to the finals and eventually winning the whole thing.
Now, obviously, winning the championship was amazing, but how did you find the Las Vegas Ramblers, or how did you find the NVA in general, or how did the NVA find you?
I was pretty lucky because when I met Bill Lee, which is the owner of the NBA, about 10, 15 years ago, and I was the first coach to actually travel China and Japan with those guys. So I got an opportunity to travel around the world with them and got to know them very well. When the NBA happened, I was visiting some club in high school, and Vinny Rodriguez reached out to me and said, hey, I have this team, and obviously you've been part of it from the beginning. Now we have a league, and I think that you'll be a pretty good fit. We're trying to figure out the schedule. One thing led to another, and I said, I think I definitely want to give it a chance. I was extremely happy that he thought of me to be the coach, and the rest is history.
Awesome. So, yeah, I'm glad you were able to be part of history. And last year in the NVA playoffs, I was glad to have met you, and I was like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And I was like, I forgot his name, but eventually it was brought back to me when Vinny told me. But anyway, so the team did suffer one loss, and that was to the Texas Tyrants. But what was the vibe like after that one loss, and what did you all tell the team, or what did you tell the team following that loss? Well,
Vinny's going to kill me because I'm going to say this live.
It's all good.
But unfortunately, that loss was our CIF game against Jordan Lucas and Upland. So we did not get a chance to, we as in me, didn't get a chance to coach And then he always says, "Oh my God, the only loss we had last year, I was the coach." So, unfortunately, we were missing a couple of guys too. It was definitely one of those nights where, we had to deal with a little bit of adversity. But I think the guys played well, and honestly, that one loss gave us a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. The boys felt that they should have won that game. They didn't, but it didn't slow the process. It put one loss against the whole thing, and we talk about hey, this is not going to change our goal. This is not going to change what we're all about. And after that, we pretty much went undefeated.
Yeah, and pretty much that one loss was pretty much the turning point, just because, it's so tough to go undefeated and win the championship. And you eventually saw the Tyrants again, and no offense to the Tyrants, but you wound up sweeping them, and it pretty much just goes to show that the regular season is not as big of an impact as the postseason. The postseason is a whole different animal. So when you saw them in the postseason, what was the mindset going into that postseason or the semifinal matchup?
Well, we definitely talked about that. We got another chance to play them again. We knew that we had the entire gate. We knew that we had a goal in mind. We talked about the fact that if we can make it easier on ourselves and start very strong and finish strong. I mean, I didn't think that we were going to sweep everyone. I thought that there was going to be definitely some teams that were going to give us a big run for the money. But the boys honestly were ready. The boys were ready from the beginning. As soon as we hit the playoffs and we swept the Tyrants first, we never looked back. I mean, the guys were just focused and on the zone. And like I said, I couldn't be more proud of my boys.
Yeah, and I was quite impressed just because, it's so tough to basically beat a team twice, and you only got to play them one time. So the fact that you are all able to slow down a team that had I know Gian was a part of that team, and I think the other guy was Jordan. I think it was Jordan Mather or something like that. Either way, the fact that you all slowed down that team is quite astounding. So, and then you eventually saw the Orange County Stunners in the final. It was obviously the rematch of last year's final. What was that feeling like facing the Stunners being pretty much like the Lakers to the Celtics, or basically the Lakers to the Celtics? That's pretty much the best analogy to fit that bill.
Yeah, we definitely knew that, and we wanted to definitely face Stunners somewhere along the way, whether it was the semifinals or the finals. We knew that in order for us to feel that we were going to win the ship, we wanted to go through what we thought was the best team in the league. Counting us too. We thought they were the team to beat, especially what happened to the Ramblers the year before, listening to the finals. So that was something that, we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves during the playoffs, but we saw that early. We saw that happening. We were just looking forward to the opportunity. So we were so hungry. We were so ready. At some point, it almost felt like they were not even ready for us. We ended up sweeping them in the finals too, which I thought it was pretty impressive because I thought that Stunners had a pretty good team, and we ended up actually winning the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you truly knew this, but that winning that championship is actually only only the second championship that the city of Las Vegas has brought home from a pro championship. The other being the Las Vegas Aces bring home that championship. How much does that mean to you, being part of history in the city of Las Vegas? Or did that not... Go ahead.
To be honest with you, I just heard that for the first time right now. So I'm actually in Vegas Airport, and I'm going back home to Orange County. But no, that's definitely that's something really cool. I mean, volleyball has been extremely good to me, and having the opportunity to coach a pro team in Orange County in California and representing the city of Vegas was technically a gift. So we had I know that there's a little bit of I believe there's going to be some changes in the future, but I'm definitely glad that we got to bring another title to the city of Las Vegas.
Mm-hmm. And before we continue, I just gotta say, with how Las Vegas has the Raiders and the Golden Knights, the NHL team, and the Raiders with the NFL team, and then the Las Vegas Aces, we gotta put some respect on the Las Vegas Ramblers name, just because they brought home a professional championship, and they deserve some respect for the city of Las Vegas, and we gotta give them some sort of commemoration. So I'm just saying, y'all. So anyway, that's just my little rant right there about the Las Vegas Ramblers on how they deserve respect in the city of Las Vegas in terms of sports. Anyway, so looking at this season, Miguel, what are you looking forward to the most when it comes to this NVA season?
There's a few changes. There's going to be another team added to San Diego, so a lot of our players are being traded into different teams too. We're forming a group, a new Ramblers group, as we speak. We're definitely excited about a couple of new players. I'll give you a little bit of a hint, but we end up signing Felix, which is a huge pickup. Anyone that has Felix and his team is definitely going to be a contender. So I met him when he was a lot younger. Had an opportunity to see him playing when he was in college. We always kept a very good relationship. And obviously with the opportunity to open up, we talked in the summer. We talked after we won, and he was definitely interested. And we're very lucky to have him. I feel that with a guy like him, we're going to be, again, a contender and have a chance to win another championship.
Interesting. Felix Chapman?
Felix Chapman.
Ah, I see. All right. Yeah, that's quite interesting. We're not going to really touch on too much of that, but I did not know that. So anyway, obviously, you mentioned the new team, which is the San Diego Wild. I'll be getting into that a little bit on the second half of the show, but what can you say about the new teams, as well as the San Diego Wild being introduced? There's the Puerto Rico Pythons and the Philadelphia Founders. What can you say about the new teams being added into the NVA?
Well, we definitely feel that adding new teams to this is only going to make the league better. We definitely want them. I think that the league is going in the right direction. And these are some of the growing pains of having a pro team. You're going to have draft dates. You're going to have kids that are going to go and play for other teams. Kids are going to get better offers. So some of this group, some of these groups are going to be extremely successful. And I feel that the recruiting concept of the NBA is only going to get better. I think that they're going to attract better players. I think they're going to attract guys from all over the world. And before you know it, because the season is so small, this is going to be so tough and so hard to win a championship. So I feel that, the more teams that get added to the league is only going to flourish, is only going to make the league a lot better.
I agree. And honestly, it's you got to buy stock into the NVA. I mean, it's only a 12-team league, yes, but it's only going to get bigger and better, especially with the entire sport of volleyball. And that's why we got to keep continuing to grow the game and continue to just support the teams, whether it's NCAA men's volleyball or just the NVA. I had to get that little drop on in there. I had to get that little fix on into that, but you know what I mean. So anyway, who are some returning players that you're excited to see back on the team again?
Well, Jordan Happy, Baby John, definitely guys that are going to be part of the program. So Josh is trying to figure out a few logistics. Kevin Bosch is one of the big middles. He's that guy that is definitely returning. We got a couple of other players that are going to be a huge part of our offense and defense. But right now, there's just still a lot of guys that are a question mark. Like I said, I mean, picking up a guy like Felix Chapman makes life a lot easier for everyone.
All right.
That's pretty much the returning class. Manoon, the Barrel. We got a couple of other names that we're not allowed to say in public yet, but those are probably the 4 guys that are returning that will be a huge part of our games. And very excited to that.
All right. Sorry about that. I just didn't mean to cut you off there.
Not at all.
Okay. So, how difficult is it to repeat as champions, and what will it take to repeat as champions?
Definitely repeat as champions is something that we all talked about. If you win a championship, there's nothing else after that than win again. The hardest thing is it's understanding that, especially when we're building a new team, it's like you pretty much start from scratch. Now the guys that are returning, we got a little taste of championship. So that's pretty much what it is. And like you said, I mean, the regular season could be a roller coaster, but as soon as you put yourself in the playoffs, having guys that have been there before, having guys that understand what it takes to win, are going to make my life a lot easier and closer to that promised land again.
How do the Las Vegas Ramblers continue to stay dominant on a seasonal basis? I kind of described the Ramblers as like the Irvine Valley of men's. I kind of describe the Las Vegas Ramblers as like the Orange Coast College of the NVA, or Irvine Valley Women's of the NVA, or something like that. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, I think that, one of the hardest things for this pro team is recruiting. It's just finding the right players and the right fit. Because you can have a team full of like superstars and never really get some room. Right now, I feel that is what the NBA is all about, is just finding the right fit, finding the players that are going to make the team strong. So I think that the Ramblers, even before I got there, they were constantly looking for players. I mean, we're looking at 40, 50 guys that we have in the back of your head that you keep within pretty much for reaching distance just in case when these players we trade as players that are going to join somewhere later in the regular season. But I think that the Ramblers do a pretty good job of keeping an incredible amount of kids involved, kind of the guys that just graduated, that are playing pro. That would always be an option this season or next year. I think that them looking ahead in the next couple of years makes the Ramblers extremely dangerous for any kind of professional league.
Awesome. Now, for newcomers or for like new fans of the NVA, or for new viewers of the NVA, what advice could you give to like a new viewer, new listener, new watcher of the NVA, or a new fan of the NVA?
It's only going to get better. I know that last year we got a little bit of a taste of ESPN 3. We are from a pro league. We feel that the NBA is going to bring something to the States that we don't have. And obviously, we're hoping that at the end we get to have professional volleyball live on TV, and everyone gets a little bit of a chance to be part of it. But it's really cool to be in the genesis stages of this organization that is developing into what hopefully at some point will be like the NBA in basketball or the NFL. It will be a regular pro league in the States where you get to go and watch. And I think the growing pain of what we're experiencing right now, it's as exciting as it's going to be in the next 10 years.
You mentioned being on TV. The NVA was actually nationally televised on ESPN Plus, I want to say.
Yes.
How amazing was that moment, knowing that the NVA finally got national was nationally televised, and how it's finally reached its full growth for the most part?
I feel that that's the next level. Like if we want the NBA to become, one of the major pro leagues in the country, TV is going to have to be present. So It was really cool to be a part of it. It was really cool to win it last year and be part of that ESPN Plus. And I could just feel this getting better and better as the years go by.
Awesome. So a couple more questions, and then we'll pretty much go to a commercial break, and then I'll give you a proper goodbye. So, do you think this year's Las Vegas Ramblers team has a target on their back? And if so, how big is the target for your team?
It's definitely a target. I mean, we definitely like the idea of feeling that we're one of the best groups around, and we're doing a diligence to try to get the best players. We know a lot of the other teams have done the same, and they understood that we kind of raised the bar of just bringing better talent and a lot of new players. So right now, on paper, even though we've still got a couple of members that we're trying to figure it out, they're going to be part of it, we definitely feel that we have a target in our back. We're definitely a team to beat.
Okay, and pretty much one last question. This year, the matches will be played at Long Beach City College as opposed to being played at San Bernardino at the Pierce Sports Center. Like, how much better will that be playing at Long Beach City College as opposed to playing at Pierce Sports Center in San Bernardino?
I think that the local crowd is going to be much bigger. I think that the local presence of younger clubs and even college teams will be a little bit more interested. I think that the drive in the Inland Empire versus going to Long Beach is going to be something very positive for the league. So that's going to be a huge change. People already talking about it as we speak. I'm like, oh, we can't wait to see you guys play. So I feel that it's going to be a step in the right direction for the league.
Excellent. I am looking forward to this season in terms of the NVA and in terms of high school boys volleyball as well. And I am looking forward to seeing you on Thursday when Newport Harbor plays Aliso Niguel. Is there anything else you wanted to shout out or basically discuss before we head on into a commercial break?
No, I definitely appreciate you taking the time and thinking of me and bringing it to your podcast. I'm a huge fan. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and I look forward to seeing you at your alma mater on Thursday.
Thank you, Miguel. I appreciate you. That is my guest, Miguel Monterola, Aliso Niguel boys volleyball head coach and head coach of the defending NVA champion, Las Vegas Ramblers. We will take ourselves a quick commercial break. When I come back, I will be recapping the NCAA men's volleyball Week 7 and previewing Week 8 of the NCAA men's volleyball and much more. You are listening to Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What is going on, everybody? My name is Harrison Glazer, and we're coming at you from the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. I cover the Jets, the Islanders, the Nets, and the Yankees.
This is Pierre Moss, and I cover the Mets, Knicks, Rangers, and the Giants.
Our show is live every Wednesday through Spreaker and a bunch of other ways to get our content. Again, we're the Show That Never Sleeps podcast. We talk about all those New York sports. It's a lot of fun. We get into all of it. Please tune in. Again, that's Wednesdays at 6 p.m.
And we look forward to having you guys right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hello, ladies and sinners. Hello, sports fans around the world. Hello, IE Sports family. This is Cale Henderson, the host of IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. If you folks are interested in sports in the Vegas area, if you're wanting to have a blast for 1 hour, every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, This is a show built for the Vegas sports fans, where we feature the Las Vegas Raiders, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the Las Vegas Aces, and the University of Las Vegas, Nevada Rebels. Hopefully, fingers crossed, MLB team coming soon. Either way, if you folks are looking to have a blast for 1 hour each and every week, tune in Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time to 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you folks are interested in Vegas sports news, go to our Twitter, at SinCities_IESR, and you can speak with me, the host, Cale Henderson, at Cale_Henderson on Twitter. At any time, be happy to reply. Always want to reach out to our fans. Again, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Back with segment number 2 of Set Point here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. Definitely check out all of our amazing shows, such as Chi-Town Weekly with Adam Karnick, which goes on an hour before Set Point goes on primarily. Also check out the show that never sleeps with Pierre Moss and Harrison Glazer, and Sin City Sports with Cale Henderson, who I highly recommend. He talks some Las Vegas Ramblers, but I digress. I hope he does, though. I think it would be awesome if he talks some Las Vegas Ramblers, but I digress. Anyway, big thank you to Miguel Monterola for being a guest on Set Point. It really does mean a lot, as, again, he was fighting through the airport trying to get some good quality. It's not easy just because there's a lot of people at the airport, and then there's like the announcements on the airport, and my good golly gracious, and sometimes the Wi-Fi at the airport just basically just gets jammed in terms of the signal, but it is what it is. He trooped through that like a true trooper, and hats off to him. So let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point. But first and foremost, Set Point would not be where it's at without IE Sports Radio providing the platform to go live on in Spreaker. IE Sports Radio can be followed on several different social media platforms such as Twitter, Instagram, and on TikTok at IE Sports Radio. We also have a Facebook, IE Sports Radio. Just type in the word IE, then sports, then radio in the search bar, and then you see the IE Sports Radio icon. Just click it, like it, and follow us, and then poof, you'll basically get your sports feed right where you need it. Then we also have a website, www.iesportsradio.com, that has just been revamped. And when you go there, you will see a Patreon link at the top. And when you click it and start to donate, you will see a Patreon link. And once you donate, you will start donating at $5 a month once you start hitting the donation button. No, the donations button. This will get you a shout from all of our amazing shows. And Other tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to IESRU, the podcasting university of IE Sports Radio, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment with Larry B. Because for the past 8 years and counting, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've been continuing to be by the fans and for the fans. And with your help, we are ready to take the next biggest step. Thank you for everyone for all of your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. Shout out to our Patreon supporters, Bay Area Raised Apparel, Key to the Gate, Marcus Los Great, and a donor that wishes to remain anonymous. Now let's get on into segment number 2 of Set Point. And a little correction on that interview. The NBA Championship actually got on ESPN3, not ESPN+. So that is my apologies. I kind of should have known that just because I was there, but that was my apologies. I kind of forgot about that, so I'm sorry. So my apologies for that. So anyway, to the NCAA men's volleyball side of things. So last week, it was kind of a quiet week in terms of upsets outside of Loyola. Loyola really impressed. Loyola was quite the team last week, as Loyola was a very, very, very good team as they beat Ball State on Thursday. Now, for me, I think Ball State has kind of taken a little bit of a step back. I'm not trying to say that Ball State is bad, per se. I'm just saying that I think Loyola is much better than what most people appear to them to be. I mean, the loss to Concordia, I think, woke them up just because I think that Loyola did not play their best game against Concordia. And then against Long Beach State, they gave Long Beach all that they could handle. And then it's shown ever since they gave Long Beach State a 5-set win, or they took them to 5. So ever since that 5-set loss, Loyola has been humming along quite nicely. They've won 4 in a row, and they are all alone in first place in the MIVA, and they beat Ball State in 4 sets on Thursday. Then on Saturday, they took down Ohio State. They defended the Gentile Arena. They swept the Buckeyes in a battle of 2 3-0 teams. The Buckeyes also took down Purdue Fort Wayne in 4 sets. That third set was bonkers, 34-32. I thought that set was going to go into the 40s, but credit those Buckeyes. They won that set. They were able to fend off the Mastodons, and they were able to take that 4th set and win that match, setting up that first place showdown. But it was the Ramblers rambling on and sweeping the Buckeyes, snapping Ohio State's 4-game winning streak, and basically getting back on track and getting all the way up to first place in the MIVA. It's looking like Loyola is really going to be the class of the MIVA. I said it before. The MIVA is wide open. I think Loyola is taking that and running with it, just because Ball State is still trying to answer some questions. Ohio State is still doing good, but I think they're now finding out that how good Loyola truly is. Lewis, they're still trying to answer some questions. Lindenwood is good, but they still have to prove that they can beat the top dogs such as Loyola and maybe Ball State and Ohio State. I will give Lindenwood this. They beat Lewis last Friday in 5 sets, which was quite impressive, but it's like they haven't really won me over. They don't really have the biggest of standout wins, but they're starting to get there. They haven't really earned votes in the top 15, but honestly, they're starting to get there. I think they're on the verge of possibly cracking through that receiving votes echelon. So there was that for the MIVA, and then pretty much everything was kind of expected, except for Saturday's matchup where Stanford pulling out the 5-set win over Pepperdine. The day before, Pepperdine swept the Cardinal. The previous match was not played at Maples Pavilion. It was played in the smaller gymnasium just because there was women's basketball going on. There was USC and Stanford in women's basketball. but in the Maples Pavilion where Stanford thrived, they were able to pull out the big 5-set win over the Waves, as that spoiled their chances of being 2-0 along with UCLA and GCU. UCLA had a pretty good weekend. They swept BYU. BYU, however, they did not have their starting setter. Their starting setter did not make the trip out to California for the 2-game series against UCLA, and that, I think, was kind of what set back those poor little those poor little Cougars, as they gave UCLA all that they can handle. There were some sets, some points that looked like that they could possibly take a set or two off of UCLA, but it just was not meant to be, and sadly, they just could not get that set. They just could not take a set off of those UCLA Bruins, as at the setter position, it was Noah Hain, which was unfortunate for BYU that they did not have their starting setter. Their starting setter primarily is none other than Heath Hughes, but he did not make the trip. It was unspecified on what his status was. All I know is that he didn't make the trip, as it was basically the other setter, Noah Bain, who was basically the setter, and Noah Hain, who was the setter. So sadly, BYU saw their winning streak come to an end, but they're still looking good, as they looked solid. They looked solid against UCLA, but UCLA is just that good of a team. And then GCU, I said there were some concerns for the Lopes just because they were flying out of Arizona to Southern California, and this was only the second time they traveled out of Arizona for a match. The other time came against George Mason, where they traveled to Fairfax, Virginia. So this matchup against USC, GCU won both matches. They won. They won the first matchup against USC in 4 sets, and then the second matchup they wound up winning in 4 sets. First matchup against USC, they won the first 2 sets. USC won the third set. Then GCU won the 4th set. Then in the second match, USC won the first set. And then it was pretty much a gentleman's sweep throughout the rest of the sets, as GCU stays perfect. Also, Charleston stays perfect. They took down Harvard. Mark Pavlik pretty much said it best. Charleston is looking very scary by the day. Looking vastly underrated, on that hiccup. Also staying within the MPSF, Concordia unfortunately took one on the chin against Hawaii. They did take a set off of Hawaii, but that was because Hawaii shuffled their lineup. They gave Jakob Tele the night off. They put Brett Sheward in at setter. Fun fact, he was a setter back at Orange Lutheran, and he was the setter in the last 8 matches for Orange Lutheran. Have to give a shout to Cindy Lewis, who told me as well on Twitter, basically told me that Brett Sheward was the setter for Hawaii in the last 8 matches before COVID shut down everything. So it was pretty much second nature for Brett Sheward. And in those wins last week for Hawaii, though, the Rainbow Warriors picked up Charlie Wade's 250th win. So that was huge right there for the Rainbow Warriors. They were able to get the job done quite nicely. Didn't have too much trouble. This week, Hawaii hosts LIU. They shouldn't have too much trouble with the Sharks. And then Long Beach State, I didn't get to see the first matchup against NJIT, but I did hear that this was kind of an interesting match. This matchup kind of showed the scrappiness of NJIT, but in the first match, NJIT did lose their middle blocker, Martin De Chavaria. He did roll his ankle in that first match, and that second match, I did go to that matchup. I actually was a set late just because I was coming off of seeing a high school boys volleyball match, just because in California, in Orange County, it kicked off the season, as that was something Miguel and I talked previously. But I did see the second and third set of NJIT Long Beach State, and it was pretty much ugly for the most part for NJIT's part. Now, those losses to Long Beach State does not describe NJIT as the team that they are. I think NJIT is an underrated team, and NJIT has played some fairly tough teams, and I think those matchups right there are basically the indicator of that they're going to need to play that matchup, just because next up for NJIT is Penn State, and NJIT gets to play Penn State at NJIT. So for NJIT, I think that Long Beach State is kind of a good little warm-up matchup for playing Penn State, just because they were going to have to play Penn State eventually, whether it's in the EIVA tournament or whether it's in EIVA play. Regardless, NJIT is going to have to get some of these big boy reps if they want to be successful in EIVA play. And honestly, not having Martin De Trevaria hurts them. Obviously, Jens Feldthus can't carry the team by himself, and no player can carry the team by themselves, obviously. I needed to check out how good NJIT was, and I actually did catch up with Danny Goncalves, the NJIT men's volleyball coach, following the Highlanders match, or following the Highlanders' second match against Long Beach State, as the Highlanders suffered a tough loss to Long Beach State, as this week they are back home against Penn State. So here's my interview with Danny Goncalves, NJIT men's volleyball coach. All right, Coach. Obviously, it wasn't the results you were hoping for against Long Beach State, the fourth best team in the nation, but obviously you gave them everything you could handle. What were some positives that you could take away from this 2-game road trip in Long Beach?
I mean, we're pushed. This is probably one of the best teams we've played all year. I don't think we're going to get pushed any harder than that, other than maybe some of our conference matches. I think that it was also a great opportunity. We got a bunch of guys to see some court time against one of the best teams, and I think that experience is going to be invaluable down the road for us.
Now, it looks like Martin is out for you all. Like, what's his status like?
Yeah, he rolled his ankle pretty bad. We haven't been able to go to the doctor yet, but he rolled it yesterday here in the match. Oh no. Him and Julian are both not on the floor right now. So
okay, never mind then. Yeah. All right. So yesterday you all played on TerraFlex. Tonight you didn't play on TerraFlex. How did it feel playing on not playing on TerraFlex as opposed to playing on TerraFlex yesterday?
I think fine. I mean, we play on wood at home all the time, so for us, I think we're pretty used to it. I don't think it really changes anything.
All right. And then obviously Jens has been pretty much your catalyst for the most part, as he, as well as Martin and the others, have been pretty much your three-headed monster. What can you say about Jens and his offensive production?
I think he's doing a nice job. I mean, he's super efficient. He's got a great arm. He's a leader in our backcourt. There's not enough I can say about Jens. I think he's a great player, and he's been a great tool for us for the last 5 years.
Now, you get back to EIVA play next week against Penn State, right?
Yep.
Yeah, at your home turf, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's obviously Penn State beat Princeton both times this past weekend. What's it going to take to take down Penn State?
Well, a little bit better performance than we did tonight and yesterday. I think this is not what we are. I think we need to try to get some guys healthy. I think our ball control needs to improve, and I really think we got to cut down our errors. If we could do, and these are all great things that are within our control. If we could do these things, then I think we, have a nice shot to do some damage.
And obviously, you've had the expectations of finishing second in the EIVA, but then you've had this little stretch of being up and down, and you're like 5 and 7. Like, what's it going to take to basically get that big breakout win and basically crack 500?
Man, we've had a lot of tough teams we've played. I don't think our record is an indicator of how we played. I do agree. I think we played a little bit up and down, but I think a lot of our competition was pretty strong. So, and that's by design. We want to push ourselves to be the best team we could be, to have teams blow us out and show us our weaknesses so we can go back to the gym and improve. I think it's just a matter of time. I think we'll keep going to the gym and trying to get better, and I think that, this weekend, next weekend, we're going to keep trying to get good by the end of the year and try to be in a place where we can win the conference and go to an NCAA tournament.
Any other players who have stood out as of late?
Yeah, Alessandro had a great night last night. He hit like 350 on the night. Carson's been doing a nice job. Christian's new libero for us. He's been doing a nice job. And then Roque always hold him down. We went with somebody different in the just for a different look, but I think Roque's been doing a really nice job running our offense.
So that was my post-game interview in the second match with Danny Goncalves, the NJIT men's volleyball coach. So as you heard, Martin De Chavarria and Julian Meisner, I kind of forgot Julian Meisner was out as well. That's two of their better players. Jens Feltis cannot carry this team by himself, and I definitely feel bad for NJIT just because, well, you're facing the fourth best team on the road, you're in a different time zone, and, well, it's the second of a back-to-back. It's real, and you're facing the team that got beat last week against UCLA. So, obviously, everything was against NJIT, and I totally agree with Danny. I think the team, NJIT is not indicative, those losses are not indicative of what NJIT truly is. I think NJIT is underrated, and you don't get better by playing baby boo teams. Like, NJIT could probably be undefeated if they play unknown teams, but they're playing some big time teams. Like, imagine if they actually played Hawaii, or UCLA, or GCU, or any of these other top talented teams. Like, heaven knows where they would be at. But all that truly matters for them is EIVA play. Like, EIVA is what's going to really make or break NJIT, just because if they don't come up big in EIVA play, then that's kind of going to leave them up a creek without a pedal, just because Penn State is obviously the top dog in that conference. Second place is still up for grabs. It looks like Charleston is probably going to be the second head on that six-headed monster, but you never can count out NJIT. Princeton also looks good, but they still have yet to get that breakout victory. You also can't count out Harvard. George Mason is also scrappy. All these coaches in the EIVA are well coached, and you just can't count anybody out. So I look forward to seeing what the EIVA has in store. Jumping over to the EIVA, Penn State kind of took care of business against Princeton. And this is no disrespect to Princeton. Sam Schweisky obviously does a great job with this program, but Penn State definitely laid down the wood against the Tigers. Now, Princeton obviously did all that they could against Penn State on the road, but Penn State's just that talented. And obviously, I think they still have a few guys out. I'm not entirely certain. But, again, Penn State, I think, has their swagger back. And Penn State is playing big boy volleyball. And they're showing why they are the number 3 team in the nation. And this is no... Again, those losses aren't indicative of what Princeton really is. I think Princeton is underrated. I think they'll eventually get up off the mat, and eventually they'll show us who they truly are. And what truly matters for them, again, will be EIVA play and will be the EIVA tournament. Every team will go to the EIVA tournament just because there's only 6 teams in the EIVA tournament. The horde got thinned just because a good chunk of the EIVA got sent over to some of the other conferences. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the EIVA has in store for us, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the other teams, I wouldn't say the lowly teams, but some of the more underrated teams in the EIVA, just seeing what they could show me, what they could truly show me. That's because the top 2 teams in the EIVA get a first round bye or a quarterfinal bye into the semifinals. So that is pretty much that for the EIVA, and I think that's pretty much that for all of last week, just because there weren't too many upsets. I already went over Loyola's upsets over Ball State and Ohio State. I don't even know if the Ball State one can be considered an upset, just because because Loyola came into that match number 13 in the nation. They did not look like the number 13 team in the nation. Yes, they lost to Concordia, but they only have 2 losses, and they gave Long Beach State all that they can handle. Meanwhile, Ball State lost to an unranked Lewis team, and they narrowly escaped against, they beat McKendree in 4, and then this week they actually narrowly escaped against Purdue Fort Wayne in 5, which is crazy. So again, it just goes to show that the MIVA is so wide open. Even Purdue Fort Wayne is pretty good. Like, despite them not having the MIVA record that everyone thinks that they have, their overall record is pretty solid. So I look forward to seeing what the MIVA has in store for us as well. So that's going to do it for all of Week 7 from last week. So let's jump on over to the AVCA, or National Collegiate Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. So starting off from 15 through 11, so there's actually a tie for 14. So the tie for 14 is CSUN and Charleston. 13 is USC, 12 is Ball State, and 11 is Ohio State. 10 through 6 consists of Loyola at 10, Stanford at 9, BYU at 8, Pepperdine at 7, and UC Irvine at 6. 5 through 1 consists of Grand Canyon at 5, Long Beach State at 4, Penn State at 3, UCLA at 2, and your still number 1 team in the AVCA / National Collegiate Coaches Poll is Hawaii. So, yeah, there's no real surprise. The top 9 stayed the same. I'm surprised Stanford didn't jump BYU, considering BYU lost both times. But there's no real true shame in losing to the number 2 team in the nation. And I guess Stanford losing in 5 to Pepperdine kind of kept Stanford at number 9 as opposed to them jumping BYU. But I digress. Meanwhile, Loyola is in the top 10 just because they beat Ohio State and Ball State, which I think is impressive. Ohio State dropped 1, Ball State dropped 1, which I think is well-deserved. USC has dropped 4 in a row, and I'm not ultimately surprised, and they dropped 1. Again, USC is young this year. They're kind of inexperienced. They have some experience with Simon Gallas and Kevin Coburn, who transferred from UCLA, but that's kind of where the buck stops. Like, their setter position is inexperienced, and for the most part, mostly every other position is inexperienced. I do give them credit that Dylan Klein is doing an outstanding job of just being a beast for them, and I think he is making, he's got some stiff competition for Freshman of the Year just because Andrew Rowan has done outstanding for UCLA. So that's that for the AVCA Men's Volleyball Coaches Poll. So let's jump on into week number 8. So week number 8, it doesn't have the true big sexy matchups, and I already did my matchups to watch for in my weekly videos, but I might as well just go over my week 8 matchups to watch for in NCAA Men's Volleyball. So starting off with Wednesday, we have number 10 Loyola at Lewis. So you're all thinking, well, Teran, you talked about how Lewis lost to Lindenwood. How is this a matchup to watch for? Well, Loyola and Lewis, once upon a time, these two teams were bad blood rivals. This was kind of like the USC-UCLA rivalry. And this is when it comes to in-state rivalries, all bets are off. You never want to underestimate these rivals. Like, anything can happen in men's volleyball when it comes to Loyola and Lewis. When it comes to Loyola and Lewis in men's volleyball, Loyola leads the series 23-19. They are 11-10 at Lewis, so that's a couple of indicators right there. It's going to be a great matchup, and for Lewis, if they want to have any hope of possibly still taking that number 1 seed / regular season MIVA championship, they're going to need to put on their big boy pants and actually do some big things and pull out that win over Loyola. They got to get up off the mat, and they're going to have to shake that loss off to Lindenwood, and they're going to have to do big things against Loyola. For Loyola, they just can't get a big head after their big week against Ball State and Ohio State. They have to come up big, and they're going to have to win on the road just because they are good at home, yes, but can they win on the road? That is their true test. They did not look good against Concordia. They looked pretty decent against Long Beach State, but then they just didn't. I wouldn't say they looked bad, but they just didn't look great. Can they win on the road in a hostile environment against their in-state rival? That's my true question. And then also on Wednesday and on Friday, we have number 5 GCU versus number 7 Pepperdine. This is going to be a very big matchup for GCU. So last week, I basically harped on GCU and the fact that can they win outside of Arizona? Yes. Now, can GCU beat a top 10 opponent outside of Arizona? That still remains to be seen. Pepperdine is a very good opponent. Jalen Jasper is him. But another player to keep an eye out for is Akinwumi. That guy has a heavy arm. Also keep an eye out for Jacob Steele. That dude is legit. And Bryce Dvorak, he is a magician. He is basically, okay, this is kind of a stretch to compare him to, but he's kind of Patrick Mahomes when it comes to volleyball. But I digress. Meanwhile, for GCU, one player who I think is standing out is Jackson Hickman. I think he's doing a real good job in being that big option for the Lopes. If he could really sprout, that's going to make GCU so much better. And everyone thinks it's going to be the Camden Gianni show, but it's now the Jackson Hickman show, and that's going to really make GCU so much more scary. As Marcus Losgreat, thank you for popping in the chat room, brother. Yes, GCU. Yeah, I forgot Marcus Losgreat is a big GCU fan, and I gotta shout out the Cactus State, my brother. So, but yeah, GCU's having a great season. They're one of 4 NCAA men's volleyball teams. The other being Charleston, Benedict, and Hawaii. No, not Benedictine, Benedict. So, just gotta throw that fun fact out there. So, there's that. But I really am looking forward to GCU Pepperdine. That's not the match of the week, though. On Friday and on Sunday, we have number 9 Stanford heading down to Los Angeles to take on number 13 USC. This is the battle of the experienced Cardinal taking on the young Trojans. That being said, I would not underestimate USC if I were Stanford. Just because USC is on a 4-game losing streak does not mean they are to be underestimated. Dylan Klein can put that ball down. Kevin Coburn can serve that ball really tough and put that ball down. Simon Gallus is a beast. Whoever USC setter is probably doing really good things, just because I imagine it's Ryan Sprague as their setter, but that's my guess. But I haven't really seen too many USC matches ever since the Lindenwood match, but I digress. Anyway, but I imagine USC, they got to get up off the mat and they got to get some MPSF wins, just because they can't afford too many MPSF losses to pile up, just because they don't want to be on UCLA's warpath to the MPSF championship. But at the same time, they don't really want to be on GCU's warpath, just because GCU really gave them that work in the first week of MPSF play. But we'll see what happens. I mean, Stanford, they're looking really good. I mean, Theo Snowy has emerged like a true freshman. Will Rotman is obviously Will Rotman. Kevin Lamp is obviously doing big things. And Ethan Hill, I forgot all about Ethan Hill. He transferred from Harvard, and he is doing really well for the Cardinal. He has emerged as that third or fourth option. He's emerged as that middle blocker option, and I think... Actually, no. Ethan Hill, I think, came from UCLA. I'm sorry. I'm getting Ethan Hill mixed up for someone else, but I digress. But either way, Ethan Hill has developed into a great option for Stanford, and I think that's going to make Stanford vastly underrated. Remember, this is the Stanford team that returns a majority of their starters, and I think that's going to make them quite scary. So as for my match of the week, and this is the last matchup to watch for in Week 8, we have UCLA, number 2 UCLA, taking on number 6 UC Irvine. So the location for these matchups are going to vary. So Friday, it's going to be at UC Irvine, and then Sunday, it's going to be at UCLA at Pauley Pavilion, and then Friday is going to be at Bren Event Center. I'm going to be at the Friday matchup at Bren Event Center, so I'm very excited to see what the Anteaters have in store for us. Remember, this is going to be John Sprawl's former team. He won 3 national championships with UC Irvine's men's volleyball team, and that's huge right there. So I'm excited to see what he can do against his predecessor, I think it's called, or his accomplice in David Niffen, who won a national championship back in 2013. So for UC Irvine, they enjoyed their bye week, but now they begin their true gauntlet. I mean, last week they kind of started their gauntlet when they played GCU. Oh, I'm sorry, not GCU, Pepperdine. But now they start another gauntlet when they play UCLA. Next week they've got Stanford, and then they've got Penn State on Sunday, which I think is rather strange, but whatever. So David Niffen was not kidding when he said that his team's got the toughest schedule in the nation. But that's good, because when you're playing teams like Long Beach State and Hawaii in your conference on back-to-back nights pretty much, you got to be ready for everything. So this is going to be a true test this weekend for UC Irvine. Can they beat UCLA? But here's the thing for UC Irvine. They're not going to be playing UCLA on back-to-back nights. It's not going to be like Long Beach State, where they played UCLA at UCLA on Thursday, and then they played Long Beach State the day after on Friday. UCLA and UC Irvine get a day of rest in between, which I think is kind of interesting, and it's kind of fair, which it could work for and against either or, but we'll see what happens for both of those teams. But I am excited, and this is my match of the week just because, well, for Irvine, I have not given them the honor of match of the week, and honestly, you gotta love the storyline right here. David Niffen gets to face his former team, and I don't think... Actually, I don't know if Irvine played UCLA last year. I'm not entirely certain, but you gotta love the whole David Niffen comes back to UC Irvine, and it's always a fun little storybook matchup, or storyline matchup. So we'll see what happens with the Bruins and the Anteaters, but I think this is going to be a barn burner matchup. And it's always fun when a great team like UCLA plays another great team such as Irvine. This is probably one of Irvine's better teams. I'm not trying to discredit some of the past Irvine teams, but I think this Irvine team is going to be up for the challenge. I don't know if they'll beat UCLA just because UCLA has been playing great volleyball as of late, but they will challenge those gutty little Bruins. And I look forward to seeing what those Anteaters and those Bruins can do this Friday. Alright, so that's going to do it for the NCAA men's volleyball portion. Now I've got some NVA action to talk about. Yes, we have more NVA to talk about because I, Teran Rodriguez, am your one-stop shop for all things NVA news. And Miguel and I pretty much alluded to this in our interview previously, as there is a new NVA team, and a new NVA team was announced last week. I think it was on Saturday, if I'm not mistaken, as we have the third and final NVA team announced, as we have our third and final NVA team, which basically completes our final trio of new NVA teams being announced. And yes, it was on Saturday, it was on Friday, I'm sorry. Friday, it was the new NVA team being announced. So Friday, the new NVA team that was announced in the NVA was, can we get a drum roll please? Hailing from California, yes, we get another California team, we have the San Diego Wild. Yes, the San Diego Wild is joining the NVA. So if you're keeping count, we have, I want to say, 4 NVA teams. Now, I'm not entirely certain about the Matadors, because I think the Matadors now have a new name. I'm not sure if they're now known as the Inland Empire Matadors, but for now, we have 4 teams from California. We have the Orange County Stunners, the Los Angeles Blaze, the Inland Empire Matadors, and now we have the San Diego Wild. Imagine if all 4 of those teams make the semifinals. God, that would be crazy. Anyway, so the San Diego Wild, that's not the biggest plot twist, however. The biggest plot twist, however, is their new general manager. Their new owner for the Wild is none other than Nick England, the former Las Vegas Ramblers manager or owner. So yes, Nick England has pretty much left the Las Vegas Ramblers, and now he is the head or the owner of the San Diego Wild, as he pretty much said this in a statement. He says, "Over the last 3 years, I've been so thankful for the opportunities afforded me by the Las Vegas Ramblers, and winning the 2022 championship as a Rambler is one of my greatest accomplishments to date. Now, though, it's time for me to begin a new chapter and a new legacy. Since the inception of the NVA, I've wanted to bring a team to San Diego. The volleyball talent and culture there is unapparalled. Unfortunately, the stars just hadn't yet aligned for it to be a reality. Until now, we've gone all in on a players first approach and have built something truly special to showcase our athletes and be worthy of representing the fans and culture of San Diego. It's time to forge a new dynasty in the NVA. Let's get wild." Yes, he really said that. As Marcus says, "Every time we bring up the Ramblers, we should play Kenny Rogers to know when to hold them." That's pretty funny, Marcus. Yeah, that's hilarious, Marcus. But yeah, the new NVA team is the San Diego Wild. So yeah, congratulations, San Diego. You now have a new professional team. But that's pretty awesome. So, yeah. And, yeah, Miguel and I pretty much alluded to this, that they do have some new players. I'm not going to tell you who. I'm not going to pretty much go over all the players. You're just going to have to wait and see. But right now, your 3 new NVA teams are the San Diego Wild, the Philadelphia Founders, and the Puerto Rico Pythons. Those 3 teams are in, and the Dallas Tornadoes, the Colorado Kraken, and the Seattle Sasquatch are out. So that's pretty much all of the new teams that have been added. Now all that we have to do is wait for the schedule. I mean, I already have the schedule, but it's not available to the public. So sorry, everybody. I can't share the schedule, but it's going to be there soon. Also, I will tell you all this. At the end of February, do wait, because there is going to be a special surprise for you NVA fans. And I'll give you a clue. Search long and hard on the interweb. That should maybe be a little bit of an indicator on what to expect. And if you go back a few episodes, I pretty much talked about this when it came to this whole little spiel. But you gotta go back a couple episodes, because I basically talked about this, but that's basically your only hint that I'm giving you about. But that's pretty much it for all of your NVA news as of late. This has been Teran Rodriguez for your current NVA news, as I, Teran Rodriguez, am your one-stop shop for all things NVA news. So that's pretty much going to do it for the NVA portion. So we have a few minutes left before I send you all on your way. So we didn't have too many NCAA women's. Wait! I'm a silly man. How did I forget about this? The NCAA Beach Volleyball season is kicking off this week. How did I forget about NCAA Beach Volleyball? This is going to be the toughest volleyball season for me this year, just because I've got the NVA, I've got high school volleyball, I've got the NCAA men's volleyball, I've got the AVP that's going to be coming up soon, and then I've got NCAA Beach Volleyball. I've got 5 different volleyballs I'm going to be covering, and I don't know how I'm going to cover it all. I promise you all I'm going to do my best to make sure everything is covered. Anyway, so NCAA Beach Volleyball, just because this week begins the first week of the 2023 NCAA Beach Volleyball season, and it's going to be a fun one. So the most recent preseason coaches poll just came out. So 20 through 16 consists of Washington at 20, South Carolina at 19, Arizona at 18, Pepperdine at 17, and FIU, Florida International, at 16. 15 through 11 consists of Stetson at 15, Long Beach State at 14, Cal Poly at 13, FAU at 12, or Florida Atlantic, Cal at 11, and Hawaii at 10. Hawaii at 11. 10 through 6 consists of Hawaii at 10, Stanford at 9, Georgia State at 8, LMU at 7, and Grand Canyon at 6. 5 through 1 consists of LSU at 5, USC, the reigning champion, at 4, TCU at 3, Florida State at 2, and your number 1 team in the preseason NCAA Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll is UCLA. So UCLA is your team to beat in the, let me say it correctly, the AVCA Volleyball Preseason Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll. So that's quite the interesting coaches poll right there. So everyone's probably thinking USC is not going to be as good as they were last year. And I understand I totally get that just because, well, USC lost a lot to graduation. But they have some good other key pieces like Delaney Maple and Maddie Shields from Pepperdine, who played indoor, comes in and she's going to be playing. And then they obviously have the twins who are playing in their final year. So I think USC will be vastly underrated as Cale Henderson pops in. He says, have a great second half of the show, buddy. I appreciate it. I wish you were here for the first half of the show. I had the Las Vegas Ramblers head coach, but it's all good. You go catch the playback. But overall, this should be quite the interesting NCAA beach volleyball season. If I had to pick a way too early NCAA beach volleyball champion, I'd probably say Florida State, just because they have quite the loaded team, and I thought they were going to take a step back, but I think they have quite a good number of key pieces they've added, and they added Morgan Chacon, and they brought in a good portion of players as well. So I think Florida State could be that team to beat. Now, UCLA obviously is really good, but I feel Florida State could be, since they were so close to winning it, I think they could be knocking on that door. But UCLA is a close second. And you obviously can't count out USC, just because USC, they are the reigning champions, and they never rebuild, they always reload. So we'll see what happens. But I promise y'all, I'll try to have like a NCAA beach volleyball team of the week as well. It's just going to be so tough to balance beach volleyball and NCAA men's volleyball and high school volleyball and the AVP and then the NVA when that starts up and then soon the VNL, and I think the AVP, like I mentioned, that's going to be starting up pretty soon. So I got a lot of volleyball to cover, and hopefully I'll be able to cover it all to the best of my ability. But we'll see what happens. Alright, so that's pretty much that for the first AVCA Beach Volleyball Coaches Poll. So, as I pretty much just mentioned, there wasn't too many NCAA women's volleyball transfers, but there was one notable transfer, and that was Phoebe Awoleye transferring from Loyola Marymount, or LMU, to Minnesota, which I think is big time right there. She had 222 kills for the Lions, which was 4th on the team. Now, it might not be the biggest number, but it's quite big considering she helped Loyola Marymount make the NCAA tournament, and she hit 379, and she led LMU in blocks with 145, and she'll make a great middle blocker duo with Arica Davis. And keep in mind, Minnesota did lose Carter Booth to the transfer portal, and you also got to remember that Carter Booth is the daughter of Calvin Booth. So I think getting Phoebe Awoleye is huge. So for those that don't think that this is a big transfer, it is a big transfer. So I think this is underrated if you ask me. So I think for Minnesota, I think they might have found their second middle blocker, if not their middle blocker one, but time will tell. So that is that for that bit of news regarding the NCAA women's volleyball transfers. And then last but certainly not least, we have a little coaching news. It's not the biggest of coaching news, but it is something to make note of, as North Carolina finally found their new head coach. Yeah, the University of North Carolina found their new head coach, as their new head coach is, can we get a drum roll please? No, don't do it. So their new head coach is none other than Mike Schall, who was their previous assistant coach, which is good. I mean, it's not bad, honestly. I think it's a start for them, just because it's always good to have like assistant in-house possible whatchamacallit, in-house hires, just because you don't want to go out when it comes to like unfamiliar names or like possible coaches that don't fit the criteria. So for Mike Schall, he worked with longtime coach Joe Segula for 5 seasons, and Segula was pretty much that longtime coach who won more than 800 matches with North Carolina. So I think he'll do great things. I really think North Carolina will definitely build with Coach Schall. And honestly, for the players that liked Mike Schall, I think it's a start for them. If they do like Mike Schall and they like him as a head coach, it means that they'll want to stay and they'll want to transfer. They won't want to transfer. So I think it's good for North Carolina, and I think that those players that are familiar with Mike Schall's system will definitely buy into his system, and they'll want to stay, and they'll definitely want to be part of something special. Just because North Carolina has some good players, and they're not a bad team. They're certainly not the greatest team in the ACC, but they certainly have something going. But we'll see what happens with the Tar Heels next season. So that is going to do it for the NCAA Women's Volleyball Coaching News. And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this week's episode of Set Point. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for me to drop the beat, because I'm about to dip like a banana in chocolate. You feel me? Thank you everyone for tuning in to Set Point. I really do appreciate everybody tuning in. If you listen live, I appreciate you. If you listen on the playback, I appreciate you. If you listen at work, I appreciate you. If you listen in the wee hours of the morning, I appreciate you. If you listen at any time, any place, anywhere, I really do appreciate you. Big thank you to my guest, Miguel Monterola, head boys volleyball coach at Aliso Niguel High School and head volleyball coach with the Las Vegas Ramblers. I really do appreciate taking time out of your day and being a guest on the show. It really means a lot. I will, once again, be at UC Irvine on Friday for the UCLA-UC Irvine men's volleyball match. It's sure to be a barn burner. Expect the unexpected. It is going to be a battle of 2 top 10 teams. It's sure to be amazing. For my guest, Miguel Monterola, and for everyone here at IE Sports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. Have yourselves an amazing week. Enjoy the volleyball action. I will see you all on Friday for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Next week's show might be on a little bit early. If not, it might be on Tuesday. We'll see what happens. Until then, have a great rest of the week. Peace!